Hey, how's it going, everybody? In this series, I'm going to show you everything you need to know to get started working with HTML. Then a little bit later on, we'll cover CSS. So why don't you go ahead and sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Hey, if you enjoy my videos, please be sure to subscribe, because subscribing is free. Just like how this video is free. Help me out. Yes, I'm guilt-tripping you. That is all. Why should you learn HTML? In today's age, people spend way too much time on the internet, myself included unfortunately. Knowing how to create or otherwise manage a website isn't a bad thing to know. Heck, add it to your resume. It really can't hurt. Even if you're not interested in web development as a career, almost every business has some sort of online presence. Knowing how to manage that online presence could convince a potential employer to hire you over somebody else. So why not? HTML is an acronym for Hypertext Markup Language. The general idea is that certain types of tags, also known as markup, is used to convey to a web browser how some content should be displayed. Usually tags are in pairs, with some content sandwiched between them. Header tags are typically used for titles. P tags are used for paragraphs of text. A tags are used for hyperlinks. HTML adds structure to a web page. If we were building a house, you could say that HTML is the foundation, the skeletal structure to support all content on a website. Then there's CSS. CSS means cascading style sheets. It's a language that adds style to a web page. In our house analogy, CSS would be equivalent to the decorations, design, and colors of the interior. To begin working with HTML and CSS, you'll need a modern web browser. You can use Google Chrome, Firefox, Microsoft Edge, Safari. Those are all fine. You'll also need a text editor as well, such as VS Code. It's free software that functions as a workbench for us to write code. In this next part, I'll show you how we can download and install VS Code. To download VS Code, head to this website, code.visualstudio.com. Look for whatever operating system you're using and download that version. I'm running Windows. I will download the Windows version. Then I will open it when it's done. Accept the agreement. Yes, I did read it that fast. Next. Next. I'll create a desktop icon. Next. Install. Launch Visual Studio Code and finish. We need a folder to hold all of the documents related to our website. Go to Open Folder. I'll place this folder on my desktop. New. Folder. I'll name this folder Website. Select Folder. There we go. We are now within our website folder. I'm going to create a new file. I will name this file index.html. Whatever your homepage is going to be, I would recommend naming it index.html. Most servers return the index file as the homepage, so it would be good practice for us to name the homepage index. Now what we're going to do is install the live server extension. Go to Extensions, look up Live Server, and install. Basically what this does is that when you update your HTML file, if you have a web browser open, it's going to update automatically. It'll save you some time. Alright everybody, now what we're going to do is fill in our HTML file. At the top, what we'll do is add a set of angle brackets, then type this, ! doc type HTML. This is a declaration that this document is an HTML5 document, which is the most recent version. Then we'll create a pair of HTML tags. We'll need an opening HTML tag and an ending HTML tag. You can tell that this is an ending tag because it has a /. Most tags are in groups of pairs. That's if there's typically content between them. This pair of HTML tags represents the root element of an HTML page. Between these two tags, we will add a pair of head tags. The head element contains information about your web page, such as a title. Let's add a title to our web page. Title. Add a closing tag. Let's set the title of our web page to be My First Website. Now what we'll do, right-click on your HTML file, then open with Live Server. Here's our web page. The title says My First Website. Just to make this easier on us, I'm going to place our web page side by side with VS Code. When we save any changes, we can see that update automatically. The head element contains information about your web page, whereas in the body, let's add a pair of body tags after the pair of head tags. The body element contains visible content in your web page. Between our body tags, let's add a pair of h1 header tags. h1 defines a large heading. I'll add some text. This is an h1 heading. I'm going to save. That should update my HTML document automatically. This is an h1 heading. Let's try h2. Add a pair of h2 header tags. This is an h2 heading. Let's do h3. h3. This is an h3 heading. h4. This is an h4 heading. Then we have h5. This is an h5 heading. Typically, header tags are used for titles or other large text. Let's discuss paragraph tags. If you have a paragraph of text, you can place that within a pair of p tags. Some text goes here. If you need some sample text to work with, if you're using VS Code, you can type lorem, then tab. This will create some garbage text for you. I think it's supposed to resemble Latin. If I were to copy everything within the set of paragraph tags, then save it, paragraphs are separated with a line break. Otherwise, if you do need a line break, you can type BR, meaning line break. So this is a self-closing tag. Pairs of tags usually have some sort of content between them. With a line break, that's a self-closing tag. We don't need a closing tag. So add as many line breaks as you need, wherever you need them. So that's a line break. There's also horizontal rule, which is HR. Think human resources, HR. That would add a horizontal line across your page. That might look pretty good after a title. Paragraph tags don't care about any spaces or new lines. I'm going to put all of this on separate lines, just so it's more legible. So when I save, nothing appears to happen. Even if I were to add some line breaks between these sentences, nothing appears to change. You could always change your paragraph tags to PRE, meaning pre-formatted, as in pre-formatted text. That would retain any line breaks or spaces within these tags. It's up to you if you prefer the P tags or the pre tags. Now, the last thing I'm going to discuss are comments. Comments aren't displayed as output. They're usually used as notes for yourself or for other developers. You would type a left angle bracket, exclamation point, 2 dashes. Wherever your comment ends, you would type 2 dashes, right angle bracket. This is a comment. So when I save, nothing appears to happen. Comments are used for yourself or for other developers that are looking over this document. All right, everybody. Well, at this time, let's go over an exercise just so that we have a solid foundation and really remember everything. It'd be good practice for us. We're going to create a separate HTML file that displays the lyrics of a song you like. So let's create a new HTML file. Let's name this file lyrics.html. Again, we'll need to add this declaration, doc type HTML. That's a declaration that this document is an HTML5 document. Then we'll need a pair of HTML tags. We'll need a head element and a body. Let's add a title to the head of our document. Title. Let's set the title to be My Song Lyrics. Then we will open this HTML file with Live Server. My Song Lyrics. Pick a song that you like. Within our body tags, let's add an H1 element. This will be the title. Copy the name of your song. Place it within this pair of tags. So that's the title. Add song by the name of the band or artist. I'll use H3 header tags. That's slightly smaller than H1. You know, maybe H4. I think that'd be better. I'll add a horizontal rule. That's HR. I'll add a pair of P tags. Take all of these lyrics, copy them, and paste them within the pair of P tags. I'd like to retain the spacing. Let's change the P tags to PRE tags for pre-formatted text. That's much better. Let's add one line break after our horizontal rule. One last thing I'm going to do within the pre-tags, I'm going to add some blank lines between some of these verses. There we go. That's pretty cool. I think we have the hang of basic HTML now. In the next topic, we'll discuss hyperlinks. Hey, if you're enjoying this series so far, please be sure to support me by smashing that like button, leave a random comment down below, and subscribe if you'd like to become a fellow bro. Hey everybody, in today's topic, I'm going to show you how we can create hyperlinks. A hyperlink is a digital reference to data that a user can follow by clicking or tapping a button or link. To create a hyperlink, we will need a pair of A tags. A means anchor. Then we'll sandwich some text between these two tags, such as click me. We're missing one thing. What we'll need within the opening A tag is an attribute, an href attribute. An attribute is typically a name-value pair that modifies the behavior of an element. Href means hypertext reference. We're referencing something. Within the set of quotes, we can list a web page or a file to link to. Let's begin by linking an external website like Google. Let's paste the URL within the href attribute, save. Then when I click on this link, it takes me to Google, or some other website of your choosing based on what's within the set of quotes. There are more attributes you can add as well. They're optional. Another is target. Target equals, if you set target to be _blank, this link will open this URL in either a new tab or a new window, depending on your settings. Google has opened in a new tab for me. Another attribute is title. The title attribute displays additional information about the element as a tooltip. I'll add a message. Goes to Google. When I hover over this link, we have a tooltip that states goes to Google. That's an additional option too. This URL is an absolute URL. You can also list a relative URL. So based on the last video, we have an HTML file of song lyrics. Within our index file, we will link to our lyrics file. So let's create another hyperlink. We'll need a pair of A tags, meaning anchor. We'll need some text. Song, lyrics is good. Then we'll need an href attribute. Href equals, these two files are right next to each other. For a relative file path, all we need is the file name. Lyrics.html. I'm going to add a line break real quick. BR meaning line break. Then when I click on this link, it takes me to my other HTML file. You could add these additional attributes if you would like. One last link. I'll create a line break. We'll create a link that begins the process of emailing someone. We'll need a pair of A tags. The text will be email me. Href attribute will be set to, now to send an email, type mail to, then an email address. I'll make up one. test@fake.com. When I click on this link, we begin the process of sending an email to this email address. However, I'm not signed in, so this is as far as it'll take me currently. Okay, now for an exercise. Let's go to our lyrics HTML file. Open with live server. Let me zoom out. Based on the last project, you should have a web page with some song lyrics that you like. We'll create a hyperlink to the original video. Let's do that after the artist. That would be right here, but before the horizontal rule. We'll create a pair of A tags. I'll add some text. Original video. Then you'll need to find the URL for the original video for your song. All right. I will set the href attribute to be that URL, the URL for a YouTube video. So when I click on the link, it now takes me to YouTube. Alright everybody, that's a hyperlink. It's a digital reference to data that a user can follow by clicking or tapping a button or link. And those are hyperlinks in HTML. Hey everybody, in today's topic, I'm going to show you how we can add images to a web page using HTML. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Alright everybody, here's how to add an image to a web page. But you'll need an image to work with. I have a picture of a dog. I'll add that to my website folder. Next to my index file, I have a picture of a dog. To add an image, we'll use a self-closing image tag, then set the source equal to be the name of your image, including the extension. Mine is dog, and this is a PNG file. So this picture is fairly large. You can change the dimensions with the height or width attributes. I'll set the height to be 200 pixels. Now the width will adjust automatically. However, you could change that too if you wanted. If I need this image to be a perfect square, I will also set the width to be 200. However, this does compress the image. Depending on the dimensions of your original picture, you may need to change the height and/or width. I'll set the height to be 200 though. Then keep the width the same. It'll adjust automatically. Now, for some reason, if your image isn't displaying, let's say that I get the file extension wrong. I'll say that this is a JPEG. Well, the image won't display. You can add alternative text with the alt attribute. The alternative text, you could say anything. This is a picture of a dog. If this image doesn't display, you at least display the alternative text. Now, the nice thing about the alt attribute is that if somebody is visually impaired and they're using a screen reader, the screen reader will read this alt description. Just to test my screen reader, I'm going to add some text before and after this image as well. Let's add an h1 header tag. This is a cute dog. Then I'll add some text after. I'll use an h3 header tag. Woof woof. I'll use my screen reader. This is an extension on Chrome you can download.
My first website. This is a cute dog. This is a picture of a dog. Woof woof.
The screen reader read the alternative text for this image. So it is good practice, if you include an image, to write a brief description of the image. Another cool thing you can do with images is that you can turn them into hyperlinks. I will surround our image element with a pair of A tags, A meaning anchor. Then I will set the href attribute equal to a URL. I'll find the Wikipedia page for dogs. Alright, I'll copy this URL. Then I will set the href attribute to be this URL. When I click on this image, it takes me to the Wikipedia page for dogs. So yeah, you can turn an image into a hyperlink. Another cool thing you can do too is that you can include GIFs in your web page. This is my GIF that I'll include. I'll add that to my website folder. I'll include a self-closing image tag, set the source equal to be the name of my image. Then be sure to get the file extension right. This is a GIF. I'll set the height attribute to be maybe 200 as well. Height equals 200. Then I'll add some alternative text. Alt attribute will be smiling dog GIF. Now with a website, you may have all of your images within a separate folder, like this. I'll go to New, Folder. I'll create a folder named Images. Then I will move my images to the Images folder. So my images are no longer being displayed. We have our alternative text. This is a picture of a dog and smiling dog GIF. With your source attribute, we're using a relative file path. We need to navigate to the Images folder, then find the appropriate image files. I'm going to precede these images with the name of the folder. They are found within the Images folder. You may also need another /. For me, either work. Let's move on to an exercise. In the last few videos, we were working on a web page for song lyrics. Let's include some album art. For my song that I picked, I have a picture of the original album art that this song is found from. I will move that to my website folder. Then I will move it to the images folder within my website folder. I need a self-closing image tag, set the source equal to B. We need to navigate to the images folder. I will list that first. Images / the name of the file. For me, it's album cover.jpg. Then I'll change the dimensions. I will set the height equal to be 200. I'll add some alternative text. Alt equals album art cover. Then a line break. Maybe 2. Then I'll turn this into a hyperlink as well. I will surround our image with a pair of A tags. I will set the href attribute to be the original YouTube video where you can find this song. So href equals the YouTube video that I linked before. So this should take me to YouTube. There we are. Alright everybody, well, that's how to include an image on a web page using HTML. Hey, how's it going everybody? In today's video, I'm going to show you how we can include audio in a web page using HTML. You'll need some audio files to work with. One place you can download some MP3 files is the YouTube audio library. Find some songs that you like, and then you can download them. Let's download 3 for this lesson. Once you have your 3 songs, let's move them to our website folder. Alright, we are ready to begin. So to include some audio, we need a pair of audio tags. Then between the audio tags, let's include a source element. With the source element, there is a source attribute. We will set the source attribute to equal the name of an MP3 file or other audio file. So let me copy the name. Be sure to get the file extension. And then I will paste that file, the file name. Nothing appears to happen because we don't have any controls, and the song doesn't play right away too. So to add some controls within the opening audio tag, type controls. And that's it. So we can now play our song. Or you can mute it, fast forward it, rewind it, set the playback speed, whatever. You can set your audio file to autoplay, but people find that annoying. So you should probably not do that. If we do want our song to autoplay, we should at least mute it using the muted attribute. So our song is playing, but it's muted until we unmute it. We can even have our song loop by using the loop attribute. So let me play this. Turn up the volume a little bit, fast forward to near the end, and let's see if it loops. And it does. Cool. Now, in case your web browser doesn't support a certain audio type, you can add fallbacks. So let's say that we also have a WAV version of our audio file. I can include that as a fallback right underneath. But we should also specify the type, just to let the web browser know that this is an MP3 file and that this is a WAV file. I'll include the type attribute. I will type audio/MPEG. I will also let the web browser know that this is a WAV file, audio/WAV. So just in case our web browser doesn't support MP3 files, I'm pretty sure that they all do nowadays, we will resort to our WAV file if we have a backup of the same audio file in WAV format. Let's include our 2 other audio files. So again, we need a pair of audio tags. Within the pair of audio tags, we will need a source tag, a source element, and I will set the source to equal the name of an audio file. So let's copy the name of our second audio file, including the extension, add some controls, and there's our second song. Let me pause the first one. Let's add the last one. So here's the name of my last song. Be sure to get the file extension. We have our controls. And here's my third song. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Hey, for fun, let's add the name of each of these songs right before the controls. I'll use a pair of paragraph tags. Then I will copy the name of the song and sandwich the name between the paragraph tags. So that's the name of my first song. Let's do this again with the second song. And the third. So here are my three songs. Just to make everything a little more organized, I'm going to create a music folder within my website folder to hold all of my audio files. I will create a new folder. I will name this music. I'll place all of my audio files within the music folder. So we no longer know where the location of those audio files are. Because we're using a relative file path, I'm going to set the source attribute to be music / the name of the file. We can locate those files now. So that's our first song, our second song, and our third song. That's how to include audio files in a web page using HTML. Hey, if you're enjoying the series, let me know by smashing that like button, leave a random comment down below, and subscribe if you'd like to become a fellow bro. Hey, what's going on, everybody? Today I'm going to show you how we can include a video in your web page using HTML. Alright, let's get started, everybody. In this example, you'll need a video file of one of a few formats. You can use either an MP4 file, WebM, or Vorbis OGG. I just so happen to have an MP4 file of me playing that new Zelda game, Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. This is just some sample footage. Once you have your video file, you're going to take it and place it right next to your index file within your website folder. To include a video, you'll need a pair of video tags. Within the opening video tag, we can set a source attribute to be either the relative file path or the absolute file path of that video. These two files are right next to each other. I only need the file name. My file is zelda.mp4. And there's my video, but it's humongous. We can change the height and/or the width. Let's change the width to be 500 pixels. That's a good size. The height will adjust accordingly, or vice versa. If I were to change the height to be 500, then the width is going to adjust accordingly. But let's keep it as 500. Here's our video, but there's no way to play it. We'll need to add a set of controls with the controls attribute. Now we can play the video. To have this video autoplay when the page loads, you can set the autoplay property. It should play automatically. But if it is set to autoplay, you should at least mute it, because people can find it annoying, especially if this video is loud. Let's add the muted attribute. So now it autoplays, and it's muted. To have this video loop when it's done, let me fast forward to the end. I can add the loop attribute. Now it should loop when it reaches the end. Right about here. Yeah, and it's back to the beginning again. Just in case somebody's web browser doesn't support this video file, you can add backups. I also happen to have a WebM version of the same video. I'll place it within my website folder. Then within the pair of video tags, we will add a source element. Take our source attribute, cut it, then paste it within the source element. You can keep all the attributes within the opening video tag. You should also tell the web browser what type of video file this is. Video/MP4. Now to include a backup, we just need to use the source element again. As a backup, in case a web browser can't play my MP4 file, we'll instead use the WebM version. Zelda.webm. The type is WebM. All right, so let me delete the MP4 version to test it. Let's save and reload everything. And now my WebM version is playing. You can't really tell the difference. You also have the capability of turning this video into a hyperlink. I will surround my video element with a pair of A tags. Then I will set the href attribute to some URL. I'll set it to be the Wikipedia page for Zelda. Feel free to pick any page of your choosing. With the href attribute, I will paste that URL. Now when I click on this video, it should bring me to the Legend of Zelda Wikipedia page. To open this link, I get it, link, because it's Legend of Zelda. Anyways, to open this link in a new tab, I can set the target attribute to be _blank. Then it should open in a new tab, which it does. All right, everybody, so that's how to include a video in your web page using HTML. Hey everybody, today I'm going to show you how we can create a favicon for your web page. To create a favicon, you'll need an image to work with. Here's mine. I would recommend an image that's at least 96 by 96 pixels in width and height. Once you have your image, we'll save the image to our website folder. I'll right-click, save image as, find my website folder. Let's rename this image favicon. For a favicon, most modern web browsers accept ICO, PNG, GIF, JPEG, and SVG image files. So let's save our image. My image is now within my website folder. If you do need to make any graphical changes to your image, you can always use a program like Paint. This is a built-in program with most Windows operating systems. I'm pretty sure Mac and Linux have something like it too. If I do need to change the dimensions on my image, I can open it. Let's find that image. It's within my website folder. And here it is. If you do need to change the size of your image, you can go to Resize. You can either resize or skew your image. My image is at least 96 pixels. It's 176 for both the width and the height. Then you'll want to save your image afterwards to that website folder. Once you have your image, we're going to create a link tag. The link is self-closing. The link tag specifies the relationship between this document and an external source. The relationship attribute will be icon, because, well, we're adding an icon to our web page. The type will equal image / the type of your file. So I have a JPEG, I'll list JPG. Then we need an href attribute. That will be the relative file location. My image is within my website folder. I just have to list the file name. favicon.jpg. Let's take a look, refresh everything. And here is my favicon. Typically with a web page, I like to place all of my images within one folder. Within my website folder, I'll create a new folder named Images. And I'll place my favicon within my Images folder. So we no longer can locate that favicon. I need to change the relative file path of the favicon, because it's now within a separate folder. Preceding the name of my file, I will list the folder that it's in, images/favicon. And there it is again. All right, everybody, that's how to create a favicon for your web page using HTML. Hey, everybody, today I will explain text formatting in HTML. Text formatting gives text special emphasis. We can create bold text, italic text, underlined text, so on and so forth. Let's begin. Let's create a pair of paragraph tags. And between this first set of paragraph tags, let's type, "This is normal text." Let's copy this line of markup and then paste it like 10 times. Okay, I lost count. Whatever text you would like to add emphasis to, you surround that with a pair of tags, but there's different pairs of tags that have different effects. For a bold effect, we use a pair of B tags. Let's surround normal in the second line with B. Then change normal to the word bold. This is bold text. I is for italic. So let's surround the next line with I. This is italic text. Then underlined is U. This is underlined text. Deleted text, we would type DEL. This is deleted text. Big, BIG. This is big text. So this text is a little bit bigger than the other text surrounding it. Then there's small. This is small text. Subscript. Type sub. This is subscript text. I misspelled that. There. The subscript text is smaller and it's just underneath the other text surrounding it. Then there's superscript. Type SUP like you're saying sup, like what's up. This is superscript text. Then you have monospaced, which is TT. This is monospaced text. Oops, I forgot to close it. This is a good example of why you should add closing tags, because the markup will cascade through the rest of your document, so be sure to close any opening tags. Alright, then the last one is mark. Mark creates a highlight effect. Kind of like you're taking a highlighter and highlighting some text. You can use CSS to change the color too. I haven't really discussed CSS yet, but to add a little bit of inline CSS within the opening mark tag, take the style attribute, set that equal to, take the background dash color, colon, then we can pick a color. How about light green? I think that would look good. And our highlight effect is now light green, or pick some other color if you're choosing. We'll discuss colors more when we reach CSS. Alright everybody, so that is text formatting. Text formatting gives text special emphasis. You can create text that is bold, italic, underlined, deleted, big, small, subscript, superscript, monospace, and highlighted text. And well, that is text formatting in HTML. Hey, how's it going everybody? Today I need to explain the span and div tags in HTML. The span tag is an inline container to group elements for styling purposes. The div tag, it's very similar, except it's a block container to group elements for styling purposes. Here's an example. Let's create two H1 titles. This is a span title. Then close it. Let's copy this line of markup, then paste it. The second line will be this is a div title. I'm going to enclose my first sentence with a pair of span tags. So we need an opening span tag and a closing span tag somewhere. Alright, with this set of span tags, we are enclosing this text within a container. It's an inline container. We can apply some CSS styling to this sentence, whatever is sandwiched between the pair of span tags. Let's change the background color of the title. I will set the style attribute to equal background dash color, then pick a color. How about red? Then a semicolon. There, so the background of my title is red. But you know what? That red is a little bright. Let's do tomato. I think that's a better color. Whatever is enclosed with a pair of span tags, we can apply some inline CSS styling to. Now with div, this creates a block level container. So I will surround this sentence with a pair of div tags, div meaning division. Let's apply that same styling. I'll copy my style attribute, paste it. Let's change the color to be maybe cyan. All right, here we are. This is a title using span. This is a title using div. Span is an inline container. Div is a block level container. It takes the entire width of my document. You can see that this is all blue. Let's create a pair of paragraph tags. This is a span sentence. Then close it. Let's copy this paragraph, paste it again, then change the second sentence to div. All right, let's enclose our first sentence with a pair of span tags. All right, I will set the style to be red. Well, tomato color technically. It's kind of like we're highlighting the text, much like the mark tags in the last topic. Let's copy this tag, change span to div, then the color. How about cyan? And then we need to close the div tag. There we are. All right, now let's create two large paragraphs. We need a pair of paragraph tags. In VS Code, to generate some sample text, you can type lorem, then tab. So I will copy this line, paste it again. Let's say after the first sentence, I would like to add a background color. So right here, I will add a span tag, an opening span tag. Then where would I like to close it? Let's do so before the closing paragraph tag. Then I will change the background color. All right, we have highlighted the second sentence. Let's do this with div tags now. With our next paragraph, let's create an opening div tag. Then we'll need to close it somewhere. Let's close it before the closing paragraph tag. And then I will change the background color. Within the opening div tag, I will set the background color to be cyan. What we have done is created a block level element for the second sentence within our paragraph. Basically speaking, we can use the span and div tags to group together HTML for styling purposes. Span is an inline container. Div is a block level container. We'll be using these more when we reach CSS. And well, everybody, those are the span and div tags in HTML. Hey everybody, today I'm going to explain how we can create different lists in HTML. There's 3 different types of lists that we'll discuss today: unordered, ordered, and description lists. For an unordered list, think of maybe a grocery list. The order of items doesn't matter. To create an unordered list, you need a pair of UL tags. UL meaning unordered list. Then between the pair of UL tags, you need list items. LI means a list item. So we have a little bullet point. Let's create a grocery shopping list. Maybe we need to buy milk. Let's create another list item. We need another pair of list item tags. Let's buy eggs. What else can we buy? Milk, eggs, bread. And what about coffee? There we are. Here's our unordered list. Each list item is bulleted. Hey, let's add a title to this list. Preceding the pair of UL tags, let's use maybe an H4 header tag. Let's say groceries. Here are the groceries I want to buy. The order doesn't matter, so we're using an unordered list. Now you can create nested lists too. Let's change coffee to coffee supplies. Then after this list item, we'll create another unordered list. Then we need more list items. So for coffee supplies, of course, we would need coffee, or maybe coffee beans. Now we have a hollow bullet point. Maybe you need some creamer for your coffee, and or sugar. So that's how to create a nested list within a list. Within your list, you can create another list. Now let's go over ordered lists. To create an ordered list, you need a pair of OL tags, meaning ordered list. Then you need some list items. What about a to-do list? So we need a list item. So number 1, that's first in our list. We need to eat breakfast. I'm going to add a title too. So let's use a pair of h4 header tags. This will be my to-do list. 1, we need to eat breakfast. 2, go to school or go to class. So that's number 2. Number 3, after class, you have to walk your dog. Then 4, maybe you have to go to work. All right, that is an ordered list. Use a pair of OL tags. Then lastly, we have a description list. This one's a little more tricky. A description list is made of key value pairs. You have a term and a definition. To create a description list, you need a pair of DL tags, meaning description list. We need some terms. To create a term, you type DT, then close it. So I play a lot of Dungeons and Dragons. Let's create some definitions for some mythological creatures, like a dragon. So that's my term. Let's create a few other terms. Dragon, phoenix, vampire, and werewolf. So these are the terms. Underneath each term, we can add a definition. We'll need a pair of DD tags for description definition. I'm going to Google each of these creatures, then just paste the definition that I find. So for a dragon, I'm just going to copy this definition, then paste it within the DD tags. Here's my term, and here's my definition of that term. Dragon, a mythical monster resembling a giant reptile, sometimes shown as having wings. Let's do this with our other definition terms as well. Next, we have phoenix. Phoenix definition, an immortal bird associated with Greek mythology. We'll need a pair of DD tags. Add your definition, then close it. Here's my second description definition. Then we need vampire and werewolf. Vampire creature definition. Let's copy this. Create another pair of DD tags. Then paste that definition. Here's the definition for vampire. Then lastly, werewolf. Werewolf creature definition. An individual that can shapeshift into a wolf. So DD, close it, add that definition. And there's our definition for werewolf. So that's a description list. In a way, it's made of key value pairs. You have a term, which is represented with description term, then a description with DD, description definition. I forgot to add a title to this list. Let's do that. I'll use a pair of h4 header tags. Let's make the title Mythical Creatures. Not bad. Let's add a background color because, well, we can. I'll add a background color to the opening DL tag. So style equals background dash color. What's a good color for this? What about light green? I haven't discussed borders yet, but to add a border, you can type border, colon, then a size, maybe 2 pixels. Then there's different borders, but let's go with solid for now. Here's a border around my list. All right, everybody, so that's how to create different lists in HTML. We have unordered lists, ordered lists, and description lists. You can style your lists as well, but we haven't really discussed much CSS yet. But yeah, those are different lists in HTML. Hey everybody, today I'm going to show you how we can create a table using HTML. Let's create a table of store hours for a fictional business. I'll create a title using h3 header tags. The title will be store hours. What are the hours of operation for our store? To create a table, we need a pair of table tags. For the first row, we need a pair of tr tags, meaning table row. So the first row is going to be filled with table headers. How many columns do we have? Well, if we have a table of store hours, there's 7 days in a week. We will need 7 pairs of table header tags. So let's copy and paste these tags 6 additional times for a total of 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. All right, now for the first column, the header will be Sunday. We have Sunday, then Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So here's my first row. The first row is your table headers. Add 1 header for each column in your table. For another row, we need another pair of TR tags, meaning table row. So for my second row, I'll include table data. We need TD tags. So we'll need a total of 7. On Sunday, our fictional store is going to be closed. I'll type closed. As we can see that this data is underneath this header for the second row. Monday, the hours will be 9 to 5. Let's apply that for the other days besides Saturday. Monday through Friday, the store is open between 9 to 5. Saturday will be reduced hours, 10 to 2. All right, not too bad. To align the table data, what you're going to do is within the table row, take the align attribute, set this to center. Or otherwise, if you would like to right justify it, you would type right. But let's stick with center. Let's align the first row as well. We can also add a border. Within the opening table tag, set border equal to 0. That's for no border. Then increase the number depending on the thickness that you want. So 1 will give us a border that is this thick, 2, and 3. Let's stick with 1. Let me move this a little. These table cells aren't exactly the same size. The word Wednesday has a lot of characters. Within each of these header tags, I will set the width to be maybe 100. This column is a little bit larger now. Let's copy the width and make each header have a width of 100. Okay, this table is all uniform now. But if we were to shrink this window, the cells would be compressed. Okay, let's change the background color. Let's begin with the table. I will set the style attribute to be a CSS property. Let's set the background dash color to be black. The whole table is black now, so let's change the color for the headers. And I'm just going to copy this style attribute. Let's change the first row to have a color of light blue. We can at least see the text now. And then for the second row, let's pick a different color. I think this color would be good. Alice blue. Yeah, that's not too bad. If you need additional rows for your table, use another set of TR tags, meaning table row, then you can add another set of data. All right, everybody, that is how to create a table using HTML. Hello again, everybody. Today I'm going to show you how we can create a button using HTML and a little CSS. To create a button, we need a pair of button tags. And here's our button. It's really small and it doesn't do anything. Let's add some text. Between the button tags, let's add some text, like click me. So here's our button, but it's fairly small. We can change the size of this button by changing the font size. We will need to access the style attribute, then set the font size property to a larger font size. So font-size, 25 pixels is good. The size of our button will adjust accordingly. Let's change the background color. separate each of these CSS properties with a semicolon. Let's change the background dash color to be gray. So that's how to change the background color. To change the font color, type color, colon, then some color, like light blue. You can round the corners by setting a border radius. So that's another CSS property. Border dash radius, colon. Let's begin with 5. That will round the corner slightly. You can increase the amount of pixels for a more rounded border. Let's try 25. That's not too bad. So this button currently doesn't do anything. What I'm going to do is turn this button into a hyperlink. When we click on the button, it will take us to maybe Google. We need to surround our button with a pair of A tags. I will set the href attribute equal to some URL, like Google. So when I click on the button, it takes me to Google. Or if we had another HTML file, we can go there too. I'll create a new HTML file named maybe page2, page2.html. Let's generate some HTML. In VS Code to do that, type an exclamation point, then tab. All I'm going to add to page 2 is an h1 header tag with the title of "This is page number 2." I'll set the href attribute to be the name of that HTML file, page2.html. Page2.html. When I click on the button, it brings me to my second page. I haven't discussed JavaScript yet, but we can have a button execute some JavaScript code. This part of the lesson is outside the scope of what I would normally teach at this point in time, but if you're interested, here's a little bit of JavaScript. Again, it's not necessary to learn this at this level. If you would like to execute some JavaScript code using a button, we need a pair of script tags for JavaScript. Within this pair of script tags, I'm going to define a function. Function, you can come up with some function name. This function will do something. Then you need a set of parentheses, then a set of curly braces. Buttons have an on-click attribute. We can have the button do something if it's interacted with. The on-click attribute is going to be the name of my function, do something. When we click on the button, execute this function. What do we want to do? I'll change some text on the screen, but we'll need some sample text to work with. I'll create a pair of paragraph tags. Let's say hello. Within our JavaScript function, we'll change the text of whatever's between these two paragraph tags, but we need an ID. There's an ID attribute. I'll name this text maybe greeting. So when we click on this function, I would like to change the text of my greeting. Within the function, we can do that with document.get element by ID. Within the set of parentheses, the ID is greeting. Follow this with .inner HTML. Then we can set this equal to some new value. Let's set the new value to be goodbye. Now, when I click on the button, it changes our text. So that's a button, everybody. You need a pair of button tags. You can apply some CSS styling. I haven't really discussed CSS yet, so we did inline CSS. But if you have these many properties, I would recommend a style sheet, which we'll cover later. To make your button bigger, you can change the font size. You could have your button bring you to another HTML page, or even execute some JavaScript code. And well, everybody, that's how to create a button using HTML. Hello again, friends. Today I'm going to explain how we can create a form using HTML. To create a form, we'll need a pair of form tags. The opening form tag has a few attributes we need to fill in. First is an action attribute. After submitting our form, to what location do we want to send our form to? Form submission is done with a backend language such as PHP. you might see a file name such as index.php or action page or something of that nature within your action attribute. We're not actually going to do a form submission, but just be aware that the action attribute sends data to this location, to this file. The file listed really can be anything, but that's outside the scope of this lesson. You'll also see a method. The method attribute specifies if this is a GET request or a POST request. POST is used for confidential information, such as a username and a password. GET is for insensitive data, basically. Again, this is outside the scope of HTML at this point in time. If we have a form and we're sending sensitive data, we should use POST. Now let's create some elements within our form. The first thing we'll create is a text box. We need a self-closing input tag. So here's our text box. By default, the type is a text box, but we can specify that with the type. So type text. There's other different types like passwords, emails, telephone numbers. We'll cover that pretty soon. We have a text box, but if a user sees this text box, they probably don't know what they should enter in. Let's add a label to the text box. Preceding my input tag, I will create a pair of label tags. What do we want our label to say? Maybe username. We're telling the user, hey, we want you to enter in your username. If somebody is using a screen reader, if they're visually impaired, we should add a for attribute. What is this for? Well, this is for my username. Another benefit of adding the for attribute to a label, when you click on the label, your cursor will move to the text box. But we need a matching ID attribute within the input tag. So the ID is going to be the same as the for attribute. Then when I click on the label, our cursor moves to the text box. There are a few other attributes you might be interested in as well. But before we get to that, we should create a submit button to submit our data. At the end of our form, we'll create an input tag. The type will be submit. It's a submit button, but it currently doesn't do anything. We're not using a backend language to submit form data to. There are some useful attributes for text boxes. Within the input element for our text box, let's add the required attribute. In order to submit this form, we need to type in a password. If I just leave it blank, then hit submit, we have this little prompt. Please fill out this field. I can't submit this form until I type in something. Then I can submit it. You could set a minimum and maximum length. That's another attribute. Min length equals then some length. The minimum length for a username is 6 characters. Let's type in just 3 or some other number below 6, submit. Please lengthen this text to 6 characters or more. I'll come up with a different username, then submit, and that appears to work. You also have the capability of setting a maximum length with the max length attribute. Let's make the max length 15 characters. So let's type in a username. I'll add a bunch of characters afterwards. So I can't type in any more than 15 characters. There's a maximum. To reset your form, there's a reset button. Let's copy this input tag, paste it, then change type to reset. So here's my reset button. I'll type in a username, press reset, then we can reset the data for our form. But afterwards, I'm just going to add a break line, just to put the submit button on a new line. With text boxes, you can add a placeholder to give the user an idea of what we want them to enter in and in what format. I'm going to add a placeholder attribute. What do we want our placeholder to be? I don't know, SpongeBob SquarePants, or maybe just SpongeBob. So the placeholder is faded. It gives a hint to the user as to the format in which they should enter in information. If I were to click on this text box, the hint is still there until we type in something. Okay, let's cover passwords. To create a password, we'll use an input tag. The type is going to be password. We should probably add a label to let the user know that we would like a password. So I'm just going to copy the label that we have for our username. The for attribute of our label should match the ID attribute of our input tag. So the ID is going to be password. The for attribute of the label will be password. And then change the text too. There we are. I'm just going to change one thing. After my password, I'm going to add a break line. So I will add that here. All right, so with the password, the text is hidden. I can type in a bunch of characters and you can't see it. You could add some of these attributes as well, like a minimum length, maximum length, and the required attribute. So I'll copy those and paste them within the input tag for my password. I can type in a username. If I attempt to submit this form data without a password, we have that prompt, please fill out this field. That's because we have the required attribute set. There's also a minimum length and a maximum length set too. I'm required to type in a password that's at least 6 characters long. Right now, this is only 5. Anything between 6 and 15 is okay. For the rest of this demonstration, I'm going to get rid of these attributes. Let's cover email next. I'll create a label first. This will be for email. The text will be email. Then we'll need a corresponding input tag. Input type equals email. For the ID, I will also set that to be email. I'll add a line break after. Then I'll add a placeholder. squarepants@gmail.com. Again, the placeholder is letting the user know the format in which they should type in their information. If I were to type in some text, but we're missing that @ sign. Hold on, let me type in something real quick. All right, click submit. We have a prompt, please include an @ sign in the email address, because we're looking for a valid email address format. That's input for email. Let's copy our label. For phone, the text will be phone number. Again, we need an input tag. The type will be TEL for telephone. We need a matching ID that matches the for attribute. Phone. I'll add a break element to the end. We can type in a phone number. I'll add a placeholder too. Placeholder equals, with American telephone numbers, you have 3 digits, such as 123, dash, then another 3 digits like 456, dash, then 4 digits, 7890. So currently we can type in any numbers, then submit them. Hold on, I need a username. We can limit the format in which a user can type in some numbers for a phone number. We would need a pattern attribute. For the digits 0 through 9, within a set of straight brackets, you would type 0-9. Then how many digits do you allow afterwards? 3. Then we'll need a dash that's required, add a dash. Then another 3 digits, 0 through 9, 0-9. Then another 3 digits, dash, numbers 0 through 9. Let me move this in a little bit. Then I would like 4 digits. So now our phone number needs to be in this format. 3 digits, dash, 3 digits, dash, 4 digits. 123-456-7890. Hold on, I'm going to get rid of this required attribute just because it's kind of annoying right now. 123-456-7890. There, that seems to work. But if I were to type in a random amount of numbers, well then we don't meet this pattern. Matching this pattern is required in order to submit this data. All right, then we have dates, like a birth date. We'll need a label. This will be for a birth date. For B-Day. Input type equals date. The ID should match the for attribute of the label. Then I'll add a break element. So with dates, there's an interactive calendar to select a date. Pretty simple. Then we have a number element. A user is going to enter in a quantity, like they're buying something, like how many do you want? Let's change the text to quantity. For quantity, we need an input element. The type will be number. ID equals quantity. Then I'll add a break. So here's our quantity. We can use these arrows to go up or down. However, normally you can go into negative numbers. We can set a minimum and a maximum. with the min and max attributes. So the minimum will be 0. We don't want to go below 0. The max, I think 99 is good. So we can't go below 0, but we can go all the way to 99 and no further. You can add a default value with the value attribute. I'll set the default to be 1. That is for number input. It's good if you need a quantity of something. All right, then radio buttons. Radio buttons are a little tricky. With radio buttons, you can only select one from a group. I think a good label will be for a title. Are you a Mr., a Miss, a doctor, whatever? Like, what's your title? So title, for title, we have our title so far. Then we'll need individual buttons. I'll create a label for Mr., Miss, and Doctor. Mr., Miss. In the US, Doctor is PhD. The for attribute will be Mr. for Mr., Miss for Miss, then PhD for PhD. I'm going to get rid of these colons. So after each label, we'll create a radio button. Input type equals radio. The ID will match the for attribute of the label. We have Mr. Then we'll want to add a value too when we submit this form. So Mr. Okay, let's copy this input, then apply it to Miss and PhD. So type radio, ID will be Miss, value Miss. Then we have PhD. ID will be PhD, value PhD. So we have 3 radio buttons. Let me just add a break afterwards. With a group of radio buttons, you should only be able to select one. However, we can select all 3. That's because we need to add all of these radio buttons to the same group. We're going to add a name attribute. We'll name this attribute title. Whichever radio buttons you would like in the same group, they need to share the same title. Now we only can select one. Those are radio buttons. Okay, let's create a drop-down menu. This will be for a payment. Like, what kind of card are you paying with? Is it a Visa card, MasterCard, gift card? For payment. Instead of an input element, we're going to be using a pair of select tags for a select element. Then add a break afterwards. So we have a drop-down menu, but there's no options. We will add option elements within our select element. So these have opening and closing tags. Let's create 3 options. An option for Visa, MasterCard, then gift card. For option 1, the value will be Visa. The text will be Visa. So we have one option. Let's add 2 more. Value, MasterCard. The text will be MasterCard. Then a gift card. Value equals gift card. The text will be gift card. Then I forgot to add an ID to the opening select element. ID equals payment. There we are. All right, so that is a drop-down menu. You need a pair of select tags. Within the select tags, you can create option tags. Then we have a checkbox. Again, let's create a label. This will be for a checkbox. I think a good use of a checkbox will be a subscribe button. The for attribute will be subscribe. The text will be subscribe. We'll need an input element. Input type equals checkbox. The ID will match the for attribute of the label. Then add a break element after. I can subscribe by checking the checkbox or by clicking on the label. This one's a little tricky. We're going to create a text area. Again, we'll need a label. The text next to the text area will be comment for comment. We'll create a pair of text area tags. So we have a text area. The ID of the text area will match the for attribute of the label, so comment. You can change the dimensions of your text box, by adjusting the rows and columns. I would like 3 rows, rows equals 3, columns, that will be 25. So now we have different dimensions for our comment. You can type in anything. You suck. BroCode. That's how to create a text area. For a file submission, again, we'll create a label. We're kind of following the same pattern. File for file. Again, we need an input tag. Input type equals file. The ID will match the for attribute of the label, file. Then I'll add a break. So now we can choose a file. However, by default, we can accept all files. To limit the type of file that you're looking for, there is an accept attribute. What file types will we accept? Let's do an image. For a PNG, that would be image/PNG. When I choose a file, we're looking for a PNG now. You can add more than one file type. Each file type is comma separated. Let's also look for any JPEGs. So that would be JPEG. So now we're looking for a bunch of files, anything within this range. Now, if you're sending a large amount of data, there's one change we'll make to the form. We're going to change the encryption type within the opening form tag. Let's say we're sending an image, and the image is a large file. So we will set the encryption type equal to be multi-part/form data. In simple terms, when we send our large amount of data, we'll break it into multiple parts. Then when all of that data is received, those multiple parts will be reassembled. It's a little more complicated than that, but at this level, that's all you need to know. So if you're sending a large file, such as an image, I would recommend changing the encryption type to multi-part/form data. All right, everybody, so that's how to create a very basic form using HTML. It really doesn't look too pretty right now. You can always style it with CSS, which we'll be covering very soon. And well, yeah, that's how to create a form using HTML. Hello again, friends. It's me again. Today I will show you how we can create both a header and a footer for your web page. Header and footer elements are both semantic tags. They describe their meaning to both the web browser and the developer. They help organize your content, and CSS properties can easily be applied to anything within these containers. Headers are used for introductory content at the top of your page, such as a title, a subtitle, a logo, a navigation bar, but we haven't really discussed navigation bars yet. Footers act as a container for holding concluding content at the bottom of your page, such as an author, a copyright, or some contact information like a phone number or email. All right, so let's begin. To create a header within our body, we need a pair of header tags. Then for a footer, you need a pair of footer tags. Personally, what I like to do between the header and footer tags, I'll create a pair of main tags for all of the main content within our web page. It helps with organization. We'll begin with the header though. The header element is a container for holding introductory content at the top of our page. This is where you may see a title, like an H1 header element. For our H1 header, I think welcome to, pick your name or your business or organization. I'll just use my YouTube channel name. A header is a good container to hold the title for your web page. You could include a logo or a navigation bar. Navigation bars are a little tricky. We do need to know a little bit more CSS for navigation bars, but let's include some hyperlinks and make like a really basic navigation bar. href equals, I won't set a location. It's not really necessary for this example. We'll just have a hyperlink that goes nowhere. So we have home. Let's create 3 more hyperlinks. Home, about us, products, and contact us. The header of your document, it also tends to be a good place to hold navigation links too. Then to make this a little more fancy, I'm going to add a horizontal rule with a self-closing HR tag. Okay, that's not bad. Another use of header and footer elements is that it makes CSS styling a little bit easier. I haven't yet shown how we can apply CSS style sheets. We're going to use a little bit of inline CSS. All I'll do is change the background dash color to be whatever color you want. I'll pick medium purple. Anything within the header, I would like to change the background color to purple, or you could change the font or the font size, anything else. It's very helpful to put your content within a container. So within my main section, I'll include an image. I do have one ready. Feel free to follow along if you want. Within my main element, let's begin with the title for the main content. I'm going to use a smaller heading like H4. What would be a good title for the main content? Check out these cool moves. Maybe I'll use a colon. I'll include an image. We need a self-closing image tag. The source will equal the name of my file, including the extension. And it is good practice to add some alternative text. Profile pic is good. So there's my image. Then I'll add some text within a paragraph. We need a pair of p tags. I'll generate some sample text in VS Code. You can type lorem, then tab. And here's some sample text. So that is the main content of my page. Lastly, let's work on the footer. The footer is a container for holding concluding content at the bottom of your page. I'll begin with a horizontal rule because I think that looks good. Let's include some information about the author. Author, colon, type in your name. I'll add a line break after. So we have author, then a copyright symbol. Using HTML to include the copyright symbol, you can type ampersand, copy, semicolon. So we have a copyright symbol. I'll add the text copyright reserved, then add a break. Then I'll add an email. This will be a link. We need an anchor tag. Set the href attribute to be mail to, colon, then an email address. I'll make one up. BroCode at fake.com. Close the anchor tag. Then I need some text. BroCode at fake.com. Feel free to use your own email. I'll make my email a little bit smaller by using a pair of small tags. So enclose our hyperlink with small. There we are. And I'll change the background color to with the style attribute. Within the opening footer tag, I will paste that style attribute. I'll pick the same color of medium purple. All right, everybody, so those are headers and footers. They help organize your content, as well as make applying CSS a little bit easier, because you can target everything within the header or footer elements. And those are headers and footers in HTML. Hey, hello again, friends. Today I'm going to explain how we can get started working with CSS. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. CSS is an acronym for Cascading Style Sheets. We're able to apply CSS properties to color, style, or otherwise decorate our HTML markup. There's 3 different ways in which we can apply CSS: inline, internal, and external. We'll begin with inline. Suppose we have an h1 header tag with the title of "This is my website." Let's create a few paragraphs. We need a pair of paragraph tags. We need some sample text. I'll type lorem, then tab. I'll copy this paragraph, then paste 3 additional paragraphs. So we have a total of 4. To apply some CSS styling to one of these elements, for example, the body of our document, we'll select the opening tag, set the style attribute to be, we can list one or a few CSS properties. Let's change the background dash color of our body to be black. The background is now black. Let's change the font color of the H1 heading. Style equals color, that's for the font color. Let's pick white. Then we'll do this for the paragraphs. This is an example of inline CSS. Within the opening tag of one of your elements, you can change the style attribute, then list one of many CSS properties. Another method of applying CSS is internal, as in an internal style sheet. I'll undo these style attributes. To apply an internal CSS style sheet within the head of our document, we need a pair of style tags. Whatever elements you would like to apply CSS to, you would list that within the style tags. If I would like to target the body of my document, I would type body, then a set of curly braces. List your properties between the set of curly braces. Let's change the background dash color of the body of my document to be black. Let's change the H1 heading, H1 curly braces. Then I will list some CSS properties. Color, white. Then let's change the paragraphs. P, curly braces, we're selecting all of the paragraphs. Color, white. So that's an internal style sheet. Within the head of your document, you need a pair of style tags. List the element you would like to select, add a set of curly braces, then list one or many CSS properties. Let's remove the internal style sheet. Now we'll create an external style sheet. External style sheets are probably the most popular method because we can make a style sheet that's reusable. To create an external style sheet within our website folder, we're going to create a new document. I'll name this document style.css. We need to link this style sheet to our HTML file. We can do that within the opening head tag by using a link tag. We need to set the relationship attribute to be style sheet. We're letting the web browser know that we're linking a style sheet. Then we need an href attribute set to the relative file path of our style sheet. They're right next to each other. I only need the file name, including the extension, style.css. We have now linked this style sheet to this HTML file. Using this external style sheet, we can select specific elements from our HTML file and apply CSS properties. We will select the body of our document, body, curly braces. I would like to change the background dash color to be black. Let's change the color of the H1 header tag, color, white. Then the paragraphs. P, curly braces, color, white. If you do need to apply CSS properties to one specific element, such as this first paragraph, we can create an ID within the opening tag. ID equals, think of some unique name. I'll name the first paragraph P1. Let's do this with the other paragraphs. The second paragraph will be P2. The third will be P3. The fourth will be P4. I'm going to delete these lines. To select an element by ID, you'll use a hashtag, then the ID, so P1. What would I like the color to be? Let's change the color to red. I'll select another ID, P2, curly braces. I'll change the color to be orange. P3, color will be yellow. P4, color will be green. You can also apply CSS properties by a class, a group. Within each of these paragraph tags, I will add the attribute of class. The first paragraph will be odd. It's an odd number. The second paragraph will be even. The third paragraph will be odd. The fourth paragraph will be even. To apply any CSS to a class, you'll type dot, then the name of the class. Any elements within the odd class, let's change the color to be red. The first and the third paragraphs are both red because they belong to the odd class. We applied the color red to anything within the odd class by using dot, then the name of the class. Let's change any elements within the even class to be blue. If we're selecting a class, we type dot, the name of the class, even in this case. We'll change the color to be blue. The second paragraph is blue, along with the fourth. They're both part of the even class. Another nice thing about external style sheets is that you can apply them to more than one HTML file. Let's create a second HTML file. I'll name the second file page2.html. To generate some boilerplate HTML within VS Code, you can type exclamation point, then tab. I'll open page 2 with live server. This is page 2. I'm just going to copy all of this and make a few changes. Paste everything within page 2. Let's change the title to be This is Page 2. And we have 3 paragraphs this time. We have our index file and page 2. To link an external style sheet to page 2, again, we need that link tag. Set the relationship attribute to be style sheet. Then the href attribute will be the relative file path. They're right next to each other. I only need the file name, style.css. Now when I save and refresh the page, we have applied all of our CSS from the style sheet to page2.html. External style sheets are reusable, so they're pretty nice and convenient. Alright everybody, so that is an introduction to CSS. With CSS, you can change the font, the color, add decorations. We'll get more into that soon. You can apply CSS inline with an internal style sheet or external style sheet. And that is an introduction to CSS. Hey everybody, in today's video I'm going to show you how we can apply CSS colors to our website. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. We'll need 4 paragraphs to begin with. I'll name the first paragraph P1, the second will be P2, followed by P3, then P4. We can change the background color of an element or the font color. Let's begin with the background color of the body of our document. Within our external style sheet, I will select our body element. I'll change the background color property to be. Now, with colors, we can use names, we can use RGB values, hexadecimal values, or HSL values. For the first example, we'll use named colors. There are multiple sites in which you can find named colors. Let's go with this one, slate gray. Background color, slate gray. Save your changes, and there you go. The background color is now slate gray. Let's change the font color of our P1 paragraph. I will select the ID of P1. I will change the color, that's the font color, to be, do they have tomato? Yes, there is. For P1, let's change the color to be tomato, because I like tomatoes. Those are named colors. Another option is RGB values. For paragraph 2, we will set the color to be a set of RGB values. RGB, then a set of parentheses. R meaning red, G meaning green, B meaning blue. I would recommend looking up a color picker for this. I would like a light bluish color. So let's select, that's good. You'll find a set of 3 values for RGB. These values range from 0 to 255. We will paste those 3 values within the set of parentheses, and there's that blue color. Let's do this with the background color too. Let's change the background color from a named color to RGB values. RGB, parentheses. Let's go with whatever color this is. 41, 41, 41. And there's that new color. Then we have hexadecimal values. For P3, we will change the color to be some hex value. Let's go with a green color. That's decent. Hexadecimal values are a combination of numbers and letters. The letters range from A to F. We'll copy this hex value, then paste it. Hex values with CSS should start with a hashtag. And there's that green color. Let's change the background color again. Let's go with a lighter color this time. 54, 54, 54. There we are. Okay, lastly, we have HSL values. For P4, color, colon. Now, if you're using VS Code, here's a little trick. We can pull up a color picker. Let's type a color like black, click on the box, and there's a color picker that's built in. For HSL, we can click the top bar here. H meaning hue, S meaning saturation, L meaning lightness. Let's go with the purple color. We have one value, then 2 percentages. Let's change the background color again, using HSL. I'll pick something a little bit darker. That's good. Alright everybody, so in conclusion, with CSS colors, you can pick either color names, RGB values, hexadecimal values, or HSL values. Through the remainder of the series, we'll be using HSL. And well everybody, that's an introduction to CSS colors. Hey, how's it going everybody? In today's video, I'm going to show you everything you need to know to get started working with fonts and Google Fonts in CSS. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Alright, let's get started everybody. We will need an H1 element. Why don't you go ahead and type in your name? If your full name's pretty long, just use your first name, I guess. And we'll need a paragraph. To generate some text in VS Code, you can type lorem, then hit tab. That is good enough for now. To change the font style, we will go to our CSS style sheet. I'll select our H1 element. To change the font, we can set the font family property. Then pick a font. I would recommend a sans serif font. Serifs are these little projections on each character after each brushstroke. Sans serif fonts don't have these projections. Sans serif fonts are easier to read on a monitor or mobile device. I'm going to pick the sans serif font of Verdana. Now, not all fonts are universally accepted by all web browsers. For some reason, if we can't display Verdana, it's good practice to have a fallback font, one that's web safe. So to add a fallback after your primary font, separate each font with a comma. Let's pick Arial. If a web browser can't display Verdana, the next available font is Arial. That's why you may see 2 or 3 fonts listed for a font family. They're all fallbacks. Let's change our paragraph element. I will set the font family to be Lucida Console. If the font name contains any spaces, you can just place the font name within a set of quotes. For a fallback, I'll use Courier New. If we can't display the first font, we will use the backup font. Now to change the font size, there is a font size property. Normally it's 16, but you can adjust that number. Here's 18, here's 14, here's 1, it's really tiny, you can barely even read it, like at all. Another unit of measurement is EM. Think of EM as the standard. 1 EM means 100%, it's the normal size. 1.1 EM is 110%. 1.5 is 150%. 0.5 is 50%. You may see either pixels or EM as a unit of measurement for the font size. Let's stick with 1 EM. You can change the font weight. Normally this is normal. You can change that to bold if you so choose. There's also font style. Again, it's normally, well, normal. You can change that to italic. That's enough for basic fonts. Now I would like to introduce Google Fonts. Head to this website, fonts.google.com. This website is free to use. Find 2 fonts that you like. You can also narrow down your search too. For example, I do not want any serif fonts because they're difficult to read on a monitor. I'll just use these 2 for convenience. I'm going to open these in a new tab. Alright, we have Roboto and Open Sans. I'm going to select one of these fonts. I'll go with 400 regular. I'll press the plus sign next to this font. And we'll do so with our second font. I'll go with Light 300. To use these fonts, we need to link our HTML file with the style sheet. We can access that style sheet by going to View Selected Families. Be sure that this radio button is selected for link. Then we will copy this link. Within our HTML file, within the head element, I will paste that link. We now have access to those 2 fonts. My first font was Roboto. My second font, I already forgot the name of it, Open Sans. And there we go. That's how to link to the Google Fonts API. Now, if you do prefer, these fonts can be loaded from either a remote server or locally installed on a user's computer. For convenience, I'm going to create a new folder within my website folder named Fonts. Then heading back to Google Fonts, View Selected Families, I will download all. Once we have our file, it's a zip folder. I'm going to unzip it. We are looking for these TTF files. They look something like this. All we need to do is drag and drop these TTF files into our fonts folder. I forgot which one I used. I think it was Roboto Light. These fonts are available locally. We no longer need to link to the Google Fonts API. We can delete that link. So now what we need to do is go to our style sheet and create a font face rule. We'll begin with the first font. At the top of our style sheet, type @font-face, curly braces. We will set the source attribute to be a URL, then add a set of parentheses. The URL is going to contain the relative file path to one of these fonts. I would like Roboto. So I'm going to copy the file name. This is within the fonts folder. I'll place that first, then paste the name of that file, then a semicolon at the end. I'm also going to set the font family property. Then I can come up with the name for this font. I can keep it the same or change it. I'll keep it the same though. This font shall be known as Roboto Light. For my H1 element, I will change that to be Roboto Light. That has appeared to work even though we're not linked to the Google Fonts API. Let's add another font face rule. We will use our second font. Fonts / whatever the heck is listed here. I'm going to rename this. This font shall be known as Open Sans. So we need to change the font for our paragraph to that new font. There we are. All right, everybody, so that's a few different ways in which you can work with fonts in CSS. Hey, how's it going, everybody? In today's video, I'm going to explain borders in CSS. We'll need some sample elements to work with. I recommend creating an H1 header tag. Type in maybe your name. And a paragraph. We'll need a pair of paragraph tags. I'll generate some text by typing lorem, then hitting tab. Let's go to our CSS style sheet. Let's add a border around our H1 element. H1, curly braces. We can select a border style with the border-style property. First, we have solid. Our border is a solid line. There is dashed. We have a dashed line. Dotted. Double for a double border. Groove. Ridge. Inset. Outset. Or none. If something has a border naturally, you can remove it. Let's pick a solid border. You can change the width of the border with the border width property. Border-width. By default, it's 1. Let's increase that to 2, or even 3, 4, 5. Border width is for the border thickness. I think 3 would be good for this example. You can change the color with the border color property. Then pick a color. I'll use the built-in color picker and use HSL values. Let's go with a purple color. Something like that's good. You can even round the corners with the border radius property. Border-radius. The higher the number in pixels, the more rounded the corners are going to be. That's 5. This is 10. 15. 20. Okay, just out of curiosity, what if we do like 100? Okay, it seems like there's a maximum. You can only round at the corner so far. So it looks like the max is 20. Alright, there's also a shorthand syntax. In place of listing 3 different properties for the style, width, and color, we can do that all at once. Let's eliminate these 3 lines. We'll use shorthand syntax. For the border, I would like 3 pixels solid, then I'll list a color and use the color picker. Again, I would like purple. I don't quite remember what we had, but it was something like that. Yeah, that is the shorthand syntax. You type border, the border width, the border style, then the border color. But border radius is still a separate property. Let's add a border to our paragraph now. We will select the p tag. There is directional shorthand syntax if you want just one of the borders. Let's begin with the bottom. Border dash bottom. Then we can list a border width, border style, then a color. And this would only apply to the bottom border of our paragraph. Let's go with 3 pixels, solid, then red. But I'm going to pick a more specific kind of red. There we go. So that is border bottom. We're only applying a border to the bottom of our element. Then there's border top, border dash top. Let's go with 3 pixels, solid again, then a color. I'll go with yellow. There we are. Border left. 3 pixels. Let's try dotted this time. Then orange. That's good. Then border right. Border dash right. 3 pixels dotted again. Then I will pick green. Maybe like a light green. There we are. Then we'll set the border radius as well. This would apply for all of the borders. Let's try 10. Not bad. All right, everybody, that is how to create CSS borders. Hey everybody, today I'm going to show you how we can create text shadows and box shadows. We'll need some sample text to work with. I'll use an h1 element, type in your name, and we will need a div element. We will eventually create a box. I'll give this div an ID of box1. Good enough. I would like to give this h1 element a shadow. I will select my h1 element. I will set the text shadow property to be, we need 2 numbers, a horizontal offset and a vertical offset. Let's do 1 pixel and 1 pixel. We have an offset to the right of 1 and down by 1. If I were to increase the horizontal offset, let's change this to 2. Well, the shadow is moving more to the right. Let's try 5, 10, 50. The first number is for the horizontal offset. Let's change that to 3. The second number is for the vertical offset. If I change that to 5, well, the text is going more downwards. 50 would be this. All right, let's keep that at 3, though. You could add a third number for a blur. Here's a 1 pixel blur. 2, 3, 4, 5. If this is a really large number like 100, you can't even see the shadow anymore. Let's stick with 5. That's a decent amount. You can even change the color too. Let's pick a red color. That's good. You can add more than 1 shadow. Within the text shadow property, for more than 1 shadow effect, each shadow is comma separated. So add a comma afterwards. Let's copy what we have, paste it again. I'm going to give the second shadow a negative offset, so it's up and to the left. I'll change the color so it's more distinct. Let's go with the blue color. Yeah, I don't like that one. Yeah, that's fine. Alright, now let's cover box shadows. Let's select our ID of box 1. I'll give this box a width of 100 and a height of 100. Let's pick a color too. Background dash color. Let's go with a whitish color, so it's just barely visible. Something like that's fine. For other elements besides text, we have box shadow. And really, it's the same process as before. We have a horizontal offset. Let's do 3 pixels. A vertical offset, let's do 3 pixels again. A blur, let's do 5 pixels. And a color if we so choose, but I'll keep that the same. Now our box has a 3D pop effect, which is pretty sweet. Alright everybody, so we have text shadows for text, and box shadows for other elements. And well everybody, those are shadows in CSS. Hey, how's it going people? Today I'm going to explain margins in CSS. Margins are the space around an element. I'll create an H1 element, type in your name, or something that's kind of short, and we'll need a paragraph. I'll generate some text by typing lorem, then hitting tab. Let me just zoom in a little bit. To give you a diagram of margins, I'm going to right-click our H1 element and go to Inspect. At the bottom of my Elements window, we have this diagram. It kind of resembles an onion because it has layers. We have the element itself and its dimensions, padding, border, then margins. Padding is between the element itself and any borders. Margins are the area outside of any borders. Today we'll be working with margins, the area outside of any elements. Let's close this window. Naturally, there's a few pixels of margin around our body. The letters in our H1 element and our paragraph aren't directly next to the border of our window. So we can eliminate that. We will select the body element within our CSS style sheet. We will set the margin to be 0 pixels. So now the letters are directly next to the edge of the web browser. And if I were to expand this, you can kind of see that. So that's all that margin is. It's the area outside of an element. To give you another example, let's delete our H1 element along with our paragraph. We'll create 2 div boxes. We need 2 pairs of div elements. I'll create a class for each of these divs. Class box. Then they will each have a unique ID. ID equals box1. The ID for the second box will be box2. And then I'll give each of these some text. Box1, box2. All right, now let's style these boxes. So after our body element, let's select the box class. Anything that's a box, let's add a border. 5 pixels solid is fine. I'll change the font size to be 5em. Width to 50 pixels. Height to 50 pixels. And I'm just gonna zoom out a little bit until our view is at 100%. Let me color box 1 and box 2. We are selecting the ID of box 1. For the background color, let's set that to be red. But let's select a more custom red because it's cool. All right, then box 2 will be blue. All right, there are marginal directions. We can apply margin to the top of an element, the right, the bottom, or the left, or all sides. With box 1, I will set the margin top property to be 50 pixels. That's going to add 50 pixels of margin at the top of this element, box 1. There's also margin bottom. Now there's 50 pixels of margin after box 1. Margin left. The margin's now on the left. Margin right. The margin's now on the right, but you can't see that because divs are block level elements. They take up the entire horizontal space. You could apply margin to all sides evenly just with margin. So margin, 50 pixels. That applies 50 pixels of margin to the top, right, bottom, left. So if we were to apply this margin to a class like the box class, both box 1 and box 2 will have 50 pixels of margin around each element. There's also margin auto. It is possible to set an element's margin to take up the entire space. I can take any of these elements, such as box 1, and push it all the way to the right of my web browser using margin left. margin dash left, then I will set it to be auto. The margin on the left side of box 1 will take up as much room as possible. So box 1 is going to stick to the right-hand side of the web browser. Margin right won't appear to do anything, because it's already left justified. Now, if you would like an element to stay in the center of your web browser, you can just set margin to be auto. So box 1 is going to stay in the middle of my web page. If I were to apply this property to the box class, that will affect box 2 as well. So now box 1 and box 2 should stay in the middle of my web browser. All right, everybody, so those are margins. In simple terms, it's the space around an element. And that is an introduction to margins in CSS. All right, let's get started, everybody. So the float property. The float property allows other elements to flow around it. This is particularly useful with images and block level elements like div sections. In my example, I have a box that's made out of a div element. It occupies the entire width of the space in my web browser. Any elements afterwards are kind of pushed underneath. It is possible, utilizing the float property, to have this text wrap around this block level element, and we do that with the float property. Here's what we're going to do. For this demonstration, you will need 2 images. I have an image of a Pokeball and another one of Pikachu. Feel free to pick your own images. We're going to insert an image. An image is a block level element. I will set the source equal to be the name or the relative file path of that image. So mine is pokeball.png. But I'm going to change the height so it's a little bit smaller. Height equals, let's try 150. I'm also going to create a few paragraphs of text. In VS Code, you can type lorem, then press tab to generate some text. I'm pretty sure you know that already, though. Let's create 4 paragraphs. 1, 2, 3, 4. My first image is taking up the entire width of my viewport. All this text is being pushed underneath. To make this text wrap around this image and occupy that space, we will set the float property of the image. I'm going to give this image an ID, though. ID, image1. IMG1 for short. Within my style sheet, I will select the ID of image1, set the float property to either left or right. We'll begin with left, though. Then save everything. All of those paragraphs are now wrapping around the right side of my image because we're floating left. I'll add a little bit of margin, though, on the right-hand side. Margin right. I think 10 pixels is fine. And that looks pretty good. You can also float an image to the right. Let's change float to be right. And now the image is on the right-hand side. If I were to adjust the size of my window, the text just flows around the image, which looks pretty nice. All right, let's change that back to left. Let's create a second image. We'll place the image between the second and third paragraphs. So my second image is Pikachu.png. Pikachu.png. The height will be the same. I'll give this image an ID of image2. This image isn't floating. Again, the text is not wrapping around the image. Let's take image2. We will float this image to the right. I'll add some margin to the left as well. Margin dash left. Let's do 10 pixels. Yeah, there we go. That looks pretty good. Basically speaking, the float property allows other elements to flow around it. Now, there is one thing I want to show you. I'll add a border around the body of our document. Let's select our body element. I will create a border that is 3 pixels solid. Now check this out. With my second image, it's overflowing outside of the container that it's in, the body of my document. There is one change we can make to our container, our body. With our container, I will set the display property to be flow-body. dash root. Now anything that's floating will stay within the container. It's not going to overflow. Pikachu is still within the box. Alright everybody, in conclusion, the float property allows other elements to flow around it, and that is the float property in CSS.